Hello and welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Bethlehem Buzz. Today is May 19th and it's a cloudy, dreary, rainy day, mid-50s. It's just a good day to be inside. Jesus once said, and Paul quotes him in Acts 20:35, that it's better to give than it is to receive. And Jesus is right on target there. Um, which is better? What do you get more joy from? Receiving a gift or watching someone open a gift that you have taken great care in giving them, and it's a gift that you are giving in love that's very special? Well, my guess it's watching the person open the gift that you've given them. So in that respect, it is better to give than it is to receive. But it may also be true that in times it is better to receive than it is to give. And I think Jesus is making an assumption when he says it's better to give than it is to receive. He's assuming that we have something to give, something that we've already received. Because you cannot give what you do not possess, what you do not have. I learned this lesson early on in my ministry of how it is important and more blessed to receive than it is to give. I remember I was serving 3 little churches out in the country, and the largest church, St. Mark's, I think it might have been the very first Sunday I was there. After church, one of the members came to me and said, "David, you might want to go visit Doris." And I said, "I'd be glad to visit Doris. Where does she live?" And they said, "Oh no, Doris is not a woman, Doris is a man." Well, I'd never heard of a man named Doris. That's one reason why I still remember this. I had a Aunt Marion, and I know John Wayne was Marion, and I had a friend that was Carol, who was a guy, but I never heard of a man named Doris. So I said, "Sure, I'll go visit Doris." And I said, "I'll go tomorrow afternoon." So I went to visit Doris, and he lived in a little trailer way off the road, and very nice yard with fruit trees and flowers and cut grass and a large garden. And Doris's wife had passed away just a few months before, and he had been lonely and grieving. And so I went to the door and was welcomed in, and there were 2 glasses on the table with a big pitcher of tea right in the center and then a plate of cookies. And he knew I was coming, even though I had not called him ahead of time. He knew I was coming to visit, and I'm glad I did. And I sat there and we enjoyed our glasses of tea and cookies together, and he shared with me about his long marriage to his wife and how he missed her. He talked about his family and their life together. And it was a real blessing to me to get to know Doris and to be welcomed and accepted as his new pastor. And when I got up to leave, there was by the door this paper grocery bag with 2 giant heads of cabbage in it. And it was his gift to me, fresh picked from his garden, as a way of just welcoming me and showing his care for me as his pastor. And at first I almost declined the gift because I was 26, Cheryl was 25, and we just simply didn't eat cabbage. I don't think either of us grew up eating cabbage, and maybe some slaw every now and then, but we just didn't eat cabbage. And I almost said, "No thanks, it's not something that we eat." But the Holy Spirit, and I know it was the Holy Spirit who spoke to me in a sense and saying, "David, pay attention here. Notice what's going on. You need to receive this gift that Doris wants to give to you." And I'm glad I listened to the Holy Spirit at the time, because had I refused that, I would have, first of all, refused Doris the blessing of showing his care for me, of giving that gift, and then I would have missed out on the blessing as well as one who received it. So in this case, it was better for me to receive than it was to give. Now, I know in relation to God, we might think, well, how do we come to this place where we can receive from God? You might say, well, prayer. Prayer is the answer to that. But when I think of prayer, I think of words that we offer, words that we say to God. And I think many people see prayer as that. But to be honest, after 10, 15 minutes of saying words, I kind of run out of words. And there's another dimension then to prayer that isn't saying words. It's just simply being silent, being still, being quiet. It's kind of the verse that says, "Be still and know that I am God. We think of the passage from 1 Kings 19 about Elijah, who had this contest with the prophets of Baal, and he was exhausted and he was on the run, and so he slept and he ate, and then God called him to the mountain of God, Sinai, or Horeb as it's called in this case. And so Elijah goes to the mountain, and there is this tornado, but God is not in the tornado. And then there's an earthquake, but God is not in the earthquake. And then there's the fire, and God is not in the fire. And then it says that in sheer silence is when Elijah experienced God, and he was able to hear God in the silence. And so there's a part of experiencing God that requires silence, of us being still. And I'm a part of a spiritual formation group, and we've been talking about and studying solitude. And yesterday, our person we were reading was a Benedictine monk by the name of John Main that lived in the mid part of the 20th century. I wasn't really familiar with him, but he talks about silence emerging. He says, I think what all of us have to learn is that we do not have to create silence. And I always thought I had to do that. I had to create the silence. The silence is there within us. What we have to do is to enter into it, to become silent, to become the silence. The purpose is to allow ourselves to become silent enough to allow this interior silence to emerge. Silence is the language of the Spirit. So if we want to live lives in the Spirit, being able to listen to God, we have to learn and to let the silence emerge in us, to join that silence so that we can hear. If you'd like to learn more about this, we've been talking about maybe offering a course, maybe a Zoom course, or where you can be a part of mindfulness or centering prayer or contemplative prayer, to learn more about silence. Let me know if this is something that you're interested in. But I hope you have a blessed day. I look forward to being with you again on Thursday, and look for some time in this time of silence, time of the upheaval of the earthquake and fire and the storm, because the virus isn't over. This time of needing to be apart from each other needs to continue to be safe. So in this time is a good time to learn silence and the life in the Spirit that you can find through that time. So blessings upon you, and I'll see you soon.